Because if they're not looking bad, you're not challenging them. You're not challenging them. So a real conundrum. We want them to look good, but reality is they need to look bad. There's a classic trade-off here. We learn from our mistakes. You've probably all heard that axiom. We learn from our mistakes, but we're motivated by our success. So you, as a coach, have got to figure out what is the right balance there between making mistakes, permitting mistakes, encouraging mistakes, and encouraging success. And it's going to vary from team to team, from player to player. It's going to vary. This is one of the skills that you have to develop as a coach, how to come up with that balance for your players. Okay, task analysis. I'm going to go through this very, very quickly and give you a little exercise just to break up the monotony here. Systematic breakdown of the constraints that surround a particular task and skill. Why do we do it? We do it to understand the demands that a particular task places on a learner, and then to assess whether the learner has the prerequisites to meet those task demands. Right? Now, if I had another couple of hours, I would just spend it on task analysis, because I don't think you can really create effective learning environments unless you're good at task analysis. Unless you're skilled at task analysis, at breaking down these tasks and figuring out exactly what they demand of the learner, it's going to be difficult for you to figure out ways to promote learning of those tasks. But let me give you just a quick example of how we do the task analysis. Okay? If you've got a coin, take it out of your pocket. If you haven't, you'll just have to watch along. So if you've got a coin, take it out of your pocket. Create a little bit of space on your table so that you can actually see or have a clear path from one side of the table to another side of the table. If you don't have a coin, maybe somebody next to you will be kind enough to lend you one. And here is what I want you to do. Okay? This is the goal of the task. I want you to flick the coin to the other side of the table so that the coin lands, the front edge of the coin lands as close to the edge of the table as you can possibly get it. Okay, so have a go at that. Have a few practice trials. Have a few practice trials, and then we'll do a little task analysis. There are no prizes actually for success. Okay, all right. Let's stop there and let's have a look at this task. Okay, so we do this systematic breakdown of the constraints that surround the task. If we start with the task itself, the goal is the number one constraint. Okay, that's the number one thing that whatever movement solution you come up with, you have to conform to that particular goal. All right, so there are two important things I said. One, flick the coin. Two, do it in such a way that it lands the front end lands as close to the edge of the table as possible. Let's start with flick. What is a flick? Okay, because that was a major constraint. All right, I said flick it. I didn't say do it any other way. I said flick it. But when I look around the room, everybody has a slightly different idea of what flick means. Okay, this could be a flick. This could be a flick. And a lot of people thought this was a flick. So right from the outset, everybody interpreted that goal differently with respect to their understanding of a flick. Right? This harks back to one of the things that Donna said. Okay? When you think about listening, okay, what you tell people is not necessarily what they're going to understand or what they're going to take away. They're going to interpret what they say with respect to their own understanding of the task itself. So, there are lots of different ways that people use this, or basically interpreted this instruction, flick, from the outset. Different movement solutions. Now, if we look at the environment in which the task took place, we're interested in the characteristics of the surfaces, the objects, and the other people that are involved in the task. So, what characteristics of the object does the movement solution have to conform to? To solve this problem, to achieve the goal, what characteristics of the object do you have to take into account? Size, shape, weight. Yep, surface, friction characteristics of the surface. Colour could influence what happens, but it's not necessarily one of the things that the movement directly has to conform to. Because the characteristics that the movement has to conform to relate to force. Right? Every time we move, it's a force problem. We're going to generate a pattern of forces that will get the job done. So colour will influence our performance, but the movement doesn't necessarily have to conform to it. So the key characteristics are things like size, shape, weight, texture, and so on. What about the surface? What characteristics of the surface are important? The distance, the width of the table, friction on the table. All the characteristics of the table we can come up with that are going to affect this coefficient of friction here are going to be important. So, what do we start to get an understanding of when we do this sort of task analysis? I'm not going to take you through the whole process here. I just want to give you a sense of what we're driving at with task analysis. We're trying to understand the demands that this task puts on the learner. All of these factors that we've identified, and there are many other ones, are factors that the learner has to figure out how to deal with in coming up with a solution. The better they are at identifying all these factors, the better they are at coming up with a solution. The better you are as a coach at identifying all of these characteristics, all these constraints, the better you will be able to figure out smart variations in practice that will allow the performer to come up with appropriate solutions to these problems. When you look at all the things that can vary in this task, you get a sense of all of the conditions that you are going to need to vary in practice. Right? Because this task, let's say this was passing rather than flicking a coin. We would do the same sort of analysis in terms of looking at all the key characteristics of the environment and the task that the movement has to conform to. We look at the wide range of variation in those characteristics, and all of a sudden we have an idea that these are the variations that our players need to be exposed to if they're going to meet that middle criteria in the definition of skill. The ability to deal with a wide variety of different conditions. This is our first insight into what those important conditions are going to be and how we can structure practice to manipulate those conditions. So you need to develop this skill as a coach. Your players need to develop it. We all do it intuitively. Every time we approach a new task, or even if it's a task we've already done, we engage in task analysis. We look at the characteristics of the task and environment we have to conform to, and we think about what solution, what plan are we going to come up with to meet those demands. Athletes that are good at task analysis are usually skilled. Skill in task analysis correlates with skill in behaviour overall. So, key thing. Again, I wish I had more time to go through this, but hopefully I just gave you enough of a taste to know how important task analysis is. It's effective practice. And if you can understand this slide, you can probably leave after this, because you'll know what to do from this point on. Nikolai Bernstein is a Soviet physiologist whose work has been very influential in the motor learning, motor control, skill acquisition area. His work wasn't translated into English until the mid-60s. He's one of those rare geniuses, I would say, that really understood what learning was all about. He described practice as a particular type of repetition without repetition. Again, understand that and you're almost across the finish line in terms of figuring out how to facilitate learning. Repetition without repetition. He elaborated. Practice consists in the gradual success of a search for optimal motor solutions to the appropriate problems. Problem solving, again, searching for solutions to the problem. Now, I apologise for putting too much text in one slide, but I wanted to keep this all together. So practice, when properly undertaken, does not consist in repeating the means of solution of a motor problem time after time, But in the process of solving this problem again and again by techniques which we changed and perfected from repetition to repetition. If we